It was just a prank.
Daniel?
My girlfriend of 8 years pulled what she thought was the absolute funniest prank at dinner last week. We were at this ridiculously upscale place with her usual crew. You know the type, always filming everything for social media content, treating every meal like a performance piece. The kind of women who order the most photogenic dish and then barely touch it. Mid-conversation about some influencer drama I couldn't care less about, she suddenly got completely theatrical, stood up slightly, raised her wine glass like she was making a toast, and announced loud enough for the nearby tables to turn and stare. "We're done!" Her eyes were absolutely sparkling with mischief, while her friends immediately whipped out their phones faster than gunslingers, already giggling behind their screens like schoolgirls. The anticipation was eliminating them. Then came the kicker, delivered with perfect comedic timing. Just kidding. The entire table erupted into pure, unbridled hysteria. They were clinking glasses, shrieking with that particular brand of performative laughter that sounds like broken glass, the works, like they'd just witnessed the greatest comedy bit of all time. I didn't laugh, not even a polite chuckle. I sat there in complete silence, watching her perform for her audience like some desperate actress auditioning for a role she'd never get. She was playing to the room instead of acknowledging the man who'd been with her through 8 years of absolutely everything. Christmas mornings when her family made snide comments about my background, her father's funeral when she fell apart, and I held her for 3 hours straight. The job losses, the career meltdowns, the family crises, those brutal red-eye flights to visit her sick grandmother in Phoenix. Every major moment of her adult life, I'd been there, rock solid, dependable as sunrise. But in that moment, I wasn't her partner of nearly a decade. I wasn't the man who remembered to pick up her prescriptions, who fixed the garbage disposal at 2 a.m. without complaining, who listened to her vent about work drama for hours. I was her punchline for the group chat later, a prop in her little performance piece. So I folded my napkin with deliberate precision, placed it next to my bread plate like I was setting down a weapon, pulled out my credit card, and left a crisp $100 bill underneath, more than enough to cover both our meals, the overpriced bottle of Merlot, and a generous tip for the server who didn't deserve to get stiffed because of this disaster. I stood up without any drama, no chair flipping, no theatrical exit of my own, just the kind of quiet dignity that comes from years of military service. She actually blinked in surprise and called after me, "Wait, honey, come on, it was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." I walked past the bar, past the maitre d', who gave me that subtle, knowing nod that older men share when they recognize the exact moment another man's patience finally runs out. Outside felt completely different, like stepping into an alternate reality. Cool spring air carrying the scent of blooming trees and distant possibilities. I could still hear their artificial laughter echoing through the restaurant's heavy glass doors as they swung shut behind me. The sound followed me down the sidewalk like a bad memory. I didn't drive home right away. Couldn't bear the thought of sitting in traffic, stewing in my own thoughts. Instead, I walked through the city streets for hours, past closed boutiques and glowing 24-hour diners, where night shift workers grabbed coffee and tired parents fed restless toddlers. I walked until my dress shoes started rubbing blisters, and the burning sensation behind my eyes had completely faded into something colder, clearer. At some point around midnight, I caught my reflection in the darkened window of an antique shop. There I was at 57, graying at the temples but still solid, former military, former engineer, still paying all the bills without complaint, still fixing whatever broke, still showing up when promises were made. I stared at myself for a long moment and quietly muttered, "We're done," to my reflection, but unlike her theatrical performance, I wasn't joking, not even a little bit. When I finally made it back to our shared condo around 2 a.m., she was already in full damage control mode, sending text after text. "You're being way too dramatic. It was just a harmless joke. Seriously, everyone thought it was hilarious. Don't ruin the whole night over this." I didn't respond to a single message. Instead, I methodically packed one military-style duffel bag with absolute essentials, my father's vintage Omega watch that survived 3 wars, a manila envelope containing my discharge papers and all the financial documents she'd always told me were boring paperwork, and a framed photo of my daughter from my first marriage, taken at her college graduation. I left the apartment key on the granite counter next to the espresso machine, positioned it deliberately like evidence at a crime scene. No lengthy note explaining my feelings, no dramatic speech about betrayal and disrespect, just the key. Then I sat down at her expensive MacBook and systematically transferred my exact portion from our joint accounts. Not vindictively, not taking a penny more than what was legally mine, just practically and precisely. We had no marriage certificate, no legal binding documents, just a shared life that apparently could be completely undone with a smirk over $30 appetizers and pretentious wine pairings. Next came the digital purge. I deleted our shared Google Calendar with all our planned weekend trips and dinner reservations, removed my photos from our couple's Instagram account, eliminated every digital breadcrumb of our relationship from existence. I put my iPhone in airplane mode and drove across town to my buddy Marcus's place, a guy from my old unit who understood the value of going dark, left the phone in his kitchen drawer like it was radioactive. By the time the sun started rising over the city, I had completely vanished from her world. She woke up around 7:30 that morning, expecting her usual good morning text or at least a passive-aggressive emoji. Instead, she found absolute silence. The warm side of our king-sized bed was already cold, the bathroom counter cleared of my shaving kit and cologne bottles, the coffee maker sitting unused because I was always the one who remembered to set the timer. But what really made her pause, what caused that first flutter of genuine panic, was the apartment key placed so deliberately in the ceramic dish by the salt and pepper shakers we'd bought together in Italy 2 summers ago. She opened the Sub-Zero refrigerator out of pure muscle memory, looking for the meal prep containers I organized every Sunday, the labeled Tupperware with perfectly portioned leftovers, the grocery list I always kept magnetized to the door. Nothing. Just her expensive salad dressings, a half-empty bottle of rosé, and the organic almond milk she bought but never drank. Her first message came at 7:58 a.m., still casual, still assuming this was some kind of temporary sulking situation. "Where'd you go, Houdini? Forgot your keys this time? Coffee's getting cold." No response, no read receipt, nothing. By 9 a.m., her tone had shifted completely. "Okay, seriously, this isn't funny anymore. Call me back, now." She tried calling 3 times in rapid succession. All 3 calls went straight to voicemail immediately, that dead electronic sound that means the phone is either off or out of service. She didn't leave any messages because what could she possibly say? Desperation kicking in, she called my office next, reaching the polite receptionist I'd personally trained on customer service protocols during her first week. "I'm so sorry," the young woman said with genuine sympathy, "but Mr. Weston resigned yesterday. Effective immediately. He only left a forwarding address for HR to send final paperwork. No 2 weeks' notice, no transition period, no explanation to colleagues who'd worked with me for 6 years. When she finally worked up the courage to check our banking app around 11 a.m., she discovered something that made her stomach drop to the floor. My name had completely vanished from the joint account we'd shared for 5 years, my profile picture gone, the account label quietly reverted to her maiden name alone like I'd never existed. But here's the thing that really got to her. I'd taken only what was mathematically mine down to the penny, making the whole transaction look routine, businesslike, not vengeful. Just completely finished. By noon, she was frantically calling my old college friends, guys she'd barely tolerated during our relationship because they weren't refined enough for her social circle. The first one, Tommy, didn't answer, probably saw her name and hit decline. The second one, Jake, from my engineering program, claimed he hadn't heard from me in months. Complete lie. We'd grabbed beers just 3 nights earlier after I showed him the video of her restaurant performance that one of her friends had posted to their Instagram story. Jake didn't laugh either, just shook his head and said, "Man, you deserve better than that circus." By 2 p.m., she was pacing around our 2,000-square-foot condo like a caged animal, calling her remaining friends and trying to tell the story like it still had some kind of punchline, like she was still in control of the narrative. No, he just completely left, like vanished into thin air, didn't even leave a note. Who does that? Who just disappears like some kind of ghost? Her laugh was brittle, forced, cracking at the edges. Her voice broke completely on the second disappeared. That evening, in an act of pure desperation, she made the massive mistake of texting my daughter Emma. They'd never had any real bond. Too many years of passive-aggressive comments about "your real mom" and "we're not a blended family, we're just figuring things out as we go." Emma was 23, sharp as a tack, and had never bought into her stepmother's performative nonsense for even a second. "Hey, Emma, have you heard from your dad recently? Can you just tell him I'm really worried? This isn't like him." The reply came exactly 4 hours later, timed perfectly to maximize impact. He said to tell you the punchline landed perfectly. That single sentence hit like a physical blow. That's when she finally started crying. Not the cute, Instagram-worthy tears she sometimes produced during romantic movies, but the ugly, raw kind that comes from genuine terror. Not because she missed me yet. That particular realization was still weeks away. She was crying because the man she'd depended on financially, emotionally, socially had vanished with the kind of surgical precision that scared her to her core. Not messy, not vengeful, not dramatic like her restaurant performance. Just clinically, devastatingly final. She tried calling one more time around midnight, hands shaking as she dialed. This time it didn't even ring once, straight to that automated voice saying the number was no longer in service. For the first time since that disaster of a dinner, she fully understood this wasn't some temporary tantrum or a man storming out to sulk at a hotel for a few days. This was someone who had executed a detailed escape plan she never saw coming. Within a week, her carefully constructed social ecosystem began crumbling like a house of cards in a hurricane. She posted her usual Sunday brunch photo from the same overpriced spot, same manufactured crew of influencer wannabes, but now there was a glaringly empty chair that she hadn't bothered to crop out of the shot. The absence was deafening. Her caption read, "Brunch cures everything. Girl tribe, no drama, just champagne." But everything about the image screamed the exact opposite. Two of her usual brunch companions were mysteriously absent. One was tagged but never reshared the post, and her best friend Allie, the same Allie who'd squealed, "Do it, say it like you mean it," while recording my public humiliation on her phone, looked completely off in the photo. Pale, hollow-eyed, like someone who'd just witnessed a car accident and couldn't stop replaying it in her mind. The first crack in her social armor was subtle but devastating. A PR collaboration with a mid-level cosmetics brand got canceled, citing scheduling conflicts and strategic realignment, except the same brand had no problem posting glossy campaign shots with other local influencers the very same week. Then came the real blow. Elira, the boutique that had been sending her free designer handbags every quarter for 2 years, quietly terminated their brand ambassador partnership. No dramatic announcement, no explanation, just radio silence. The free products stopped arriving, the exclusive discount codes expired, and her DMs went unanswered. She convinced herself it was all coincidental. Algorithm changes, market fluctuations, anything except the slowly dawning realization that I had been quietly holding up more of her social scaffolding than she'd ever imagined. The fancy restaurant where they always got the best table? The owner owed me a favor from when I'd redesigned his kitchen workflow system for free. The photographer who shot all their girl power content sessions? I'd been covering his website hosting and domain registration for 3 years without ever mentioning it. The wine bar she loved to name drop? My buddy from the service industry had hooked up her loyalty rewards program as a personal favor to me. One by one, these invisible supports started disappearing. Reservation systems couldn't find her accounts. Photographers were suddenly booked solid for months. Even the boutique coffee shop where she held her informal business meetings started acting like they'd never seen her before. Her carefully curated world was quietly being dismantled from the inside out. Late one night, around 2 a.m., with a glass of expensive wine that was supposed to make her feel sophisticated, she started her descent into full-blown digital stalking mode. She began obsessively searching for any trace of my online presence, swiping through her camera roll like some kind of forensic investigator looking for clues she'd missed. Not for nostalgia. She didn't do nostalgia. It wasn't on brand. She was hunting for proof I still existed somewhere in the digital universe. Instagram showed nothing. My personal account? Gone. The backup account I used for following car restoration groups vanished. Facebook completely deactivated. LinkedIn profile didn't just show as inactive. It was like it had never existed in the first place. She even went down the rabbit hole of searching Reddit, scrolling through automotive subreddits and woodworking forums I used to browse, looking for usernames that seemed familiar. Absolutely nothing. No comments, no posts, no digital fingerprints whatsoever. What really unnerved her was realizing I'd always been what she mockingly called a digital minimalist, but now it seemed less like a quirky personality trait and more like someone who'd been methodically preparing to disappear completely. Like a person planning to go into witness protection. Around 3 a.m., she started messaging people from my past like some desperate private investigator. Former coworkers who barely knew her, old neighbors from our previous apartment, Even the bartender at Murphy's Irish pub, where I used to grab a Guinness twice a month and watch whatever game was on. Most didn't respond at all, probably assuming she was drunk texting. The few who did reply gave variations of the same infuriating answer. Haven't seen him in a while, thought you guys were still together. Friday morning, running on 3 hours of sleep and pure anxiety, she finally swallowed her pride and called my cousin Jason. They'd never been close. Hell, she'd publicly mocked him once at a family barbecue for driving a manual transmission Honda Civic, saying it reeked of 2008 energy, loud enough for everyone to hear. But Jason was family, and family meant information. "Has Daniel been in touch with you recently?" she asked, forcing her voice to sound light and casual instead of desperate and slightly unhinged. Jason hesitated for what felt like an eternity. "Why are you asking? He left after some stupid argument," she lied smoothly. "I just want to make sure he's okay, you know? Make sure he's not doing anything reckless." Another long pause that made her palms sweat. "He's fine," Jason finally said, and something in his tone made her stomach clench. "Better than I've seen him in years, actually." Her world tilted slightly. "So you have seen him? Recently?" Look, he didn't want me to say anything to anybody, but yeah, I ran into him briefly at a sustainability conference in Denver last month. He was working under a different name. His middle name, different last name. Said he was doing consulting work now. Very low-profile stuff, that's all I know. What name was he using? The question came out more desperate than she intended. Jason's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "You didn't hear this from me, but Daniel Thomas became Thomas D. Westman. That's all I'm saying. Don't call me about this again." And he hung up. She immediately opened a new browser tab and started searching every possible combination. Thomas Westman, Thomas D. Westman, T.D. Westman, Daniel Thomas Westman, property records, business registrations, professional licensing boards, conference attendee lists. The search consumed her entire weekend. The only concrete result was a blurry photograph buried deep in a state government website, some sustainability expo with a list of guest panelists. There was a man in an expensive dark suit, photographed from behind, engaged in what looked like an intense conversation with a state senator. The body language looked familiar, the way he held his shoulders, the confident stance, but she couldn't be completely certain. She reverse searched the image dozens of times. No matches anywhere. The caption underneath simply read, "Thomas D. Westman, Independent Sustainability Consultant." She cross-referenced that name with LLC filings, bankruptcy records, property registrations, professional board minutes, anything that might give her a lead. Nothing matched. No digital footprints, no careless mistakes, no paper trail whatsoever. It was like he'd hired a team of professionals to scrub his existence clean. Every time she'd previously mocked him for printing hard copies of financial documents instead of going paperless, every time she'd rolled her eyes at his boomer energy habit of writing down passwords in a physical notebook instead of using browser autosave, every careful backup system he maintained, she finally understood none of it was habit. It was all preparation, insulation, insurance against exactly this kind of digital manhunt. While she was hunched over her laptop at 4 a.m., aimlessly clicking through search results and social media posts with rising panic, I was sitting in a sleek, minimalist apartment on the other side of the world, sipping fresh coffee and reading the financial section. I'd shaved the beard she used to say made me look like an unemployed lumberjack, but not the hot kind. I bought 3 crisp, tailored dress shirts, no plaid in sight, from a boutique downtown, 2 pairs of polished leather shoes, a charcoal wool coat that made me look like I belonged in a boardroom, not on a couch. My first major investment, under my real name, Daniel Thomas Weston, was acquiring 15% equity in a logistics software firm I'd discreetly advised 2 years prior. I knew their books, understood their burn rate, and saw how badly the market underestimated them. The capital was clean, quiet, wired, no noise. My second move was even more left field, a last-mile routing company that catered to niche vendors in sectors she never even noticed. All the contracts ran through a trust she didn't know existed, in a state she never visited, managed by a lawyer she once mocked as dry toast in boat shoes. My new apartment, short-term lease, intentionally spare, purposefully untraceable, had only 3 items on my desk: a sleek fountain pen, a black moleskin notebook, and a single folded photo. It was a snapshot of her laughing, taken on my phone before everything fell apart. I didn't keep it out of longing or nostalgia. I kept it like a veteran keeps a bullet casing, proof of what tried to take me out and failed. Now and then, when life felt a little too peaceful, I'd unfold the photo, not to feel the hurt, but to remember the precision of my choice. I didn't replay the pain, just the moment I made a clean cut. Her last words at that dinner still echoed, "We're done." Then that forced laugh. Just kidding. But I wasn't joking. That night became a turning point. The picture reminded me not of love, but of clarity. I started running half marathons, cycling, reading nonfiction. I slept 7 hours a night, woke up early by choice. I left no digital traces. Anonymity was intentional. Every deal, every meeting where someone thought I was a man who had always been this put together. It wasn't revenge. It was a foundation. A life that couldn't be mocked away. Then came the image that changed everything. A blurry Instagram story from a gala. Just a passing shot of the reception line. But there I was, behind a city councilwoman. Charcoal suit, no tie, pocket square, my hair shorter, posture solid. The frame was only seconds, but someone paused it, zoomed in, and shared it. "Is this Daniel?" Lit up 3 group chats. She stared at her screen, thumb frozen. Not scrolling, just stuck. The man in that photo didn't look broken or adrift. He looked like he'd stepped out of her orbit completely. The way I stood said it all, not smug, not spiteful, just absent. Beyond her reach, beyond her narrative. Weeks later, at a high-end restaurant called Bella Croix, she was making small talk with the few friends she still had when a waiter silently placed a cream envelope in front of her. Inside were 3 sheets and a receipt. The first was a notarized hotel record. Names, dates, charges. Room service for 2. A night she claimed to have crashed at Ali's after drinking too much wine. The second was a concierge's signed note. Spa treatments and car service booked under Miss A. The third was grainy but clear security footage. 2 figures kissing at valet. Her and Ali. A handwritten note slipped out. "I didn't know he'd find out. I swear I didn't know he kept records." Allie's handwriting. Her fork dropped. The table went silent. She looked across at Allie and whispered, "You." Allie went ghost white and fled. The others froze, not out of loyalty, but fear. Fear of the quiet force that had just upended their hierarchy. But there was one more page. Property transfer papers. Daniel T. Weston now legally owned Allie's coveted loft. Not a lease, a full purchase. Scrawled beneath in block letters, disposable. "That's how you saw me. Now you get it." No shouting, no screenshots, no angry texts, just action. He bought the home right out from under her best friend, guaranteeing a silent 30-day eviction. The message was loud. Written in ink, not outrage. Months later, she saw me again at an art gallery. I was with an elegant older woman, graceful, composed, not arm candy, but an equal. We were laughing genuinely. She couldn't stop herself. "Daniel?" I turned slowly, calm, like I'd rehearsed it. "Why?" she asked, hands flailing. "Why all this? The letter, the deed. Allie, you ruined everything." I looked at her like a surgeon inspecting a healed scar. "Because your laugh told me everything I needed to know." "What does that even mean?" I stepped past her, not harshly, just finished, like she was a room I no longer lived in. Then I paused. "Tell her the lease ends next week." And I walked away without looking back. A week later, Allie moved in with her sister. The building manager handed her a plain folder. "New owner, everything's finalized." Final. I was gone for real, and I hadn't looked back once. The man she assumed would always be there to forgive her next laugh had become someone else entirely. Not just someone who left, but someone who rebuilt everything from the ground up while she danced on the ruins of what they had. And the silence he left behind said more than any fight ever could.